before we get started, I want to just pause and say that we're going to go through a lot in this lesson. Remember that this is all listed in the text of the lesson, and there's plenty of templates and other supporting collateral you can get to go back and action this in your business. So stay with me. We'll get you through this. And when you're done, you're going to find that you have a really rock solid process to inject a ton of value and start your relationships off on the right foot. All right, welcome to your first 100 days as a vCISO. As a vCISO, you're in charge of developing and implementing the business's cybersecurity strategy, balancing business needs and fostering trust within the organization. Even if you're not officially on the company's payroll, you still hold a leadership role within the organization. And these first 100 days are critical for navigating your professional responsibilities and positioning yourself as a reliable decision maker. Your goals for the first 100 days should include building relationships with key stakeholders, aligning security goals with business objectives, delivering some quick wins, leveraging automation for efficiency, and overall improvement of the company's cybersecurity. To do that, the 100-day action plan should cover these 11 strategic security programs: asset management, controls management, change management, vulnerability management, incident management, service continuity, risk management, external dependencies management, situational awareness, and governance. That's a lot of management in there. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail about what each one of those things are. There's other videos and there's lesson content for that. So to keep this moving, I want to jump right in and talk about how to start actioning this for your clients. Now, it's also important to call out that these phases are roughly aligned in the order they should happen, but you will be working them in parallel. So notice that it's not dependent necessarily. I mean, some are, but you may be doing certain phases at the same time, and that's important to keep in mind as we go through this. So first, phase one is your research phase. This phase is your opportunity to get to know the organization. It involves a deep dive into the company's current security status and business goals, building relationships with stakeholders, and evaluating existing security controls. So this phase begins with researching the current state of the organization's security posture and business objectives. Identify the tools, and not just security tools, you'll need to interface with the company. For example, if all policies are stored in SharePoint, then you're going to need access to SharePoint to review them. If you design your vCISO offering to be both strategic and tactical, you'll also need access to various tools, data, and systems to review configuration, management practices, and security controls for the tactical aspect. So this goes back to our packaging and our go-to-market and making sure we're aligning what we're offering with our onboarding. Now you're going to then analyze existing infrastructure, tools, frameworks, policies, and reports to gain insights into potential vulnerabilities and the effectiveness of existing security controls and procedures. You're going to want to obtain and understand network and data flow diagrams to recognize critical data flows at potential points of exposure, and also look for completeness and to validate what you learn in the upcoming personnel interviews. You're going to review past security incidents and the organization's responses to assess their ability to effectively manage and recover from such events. Do they document previous incidents? Can you get access to that information? And do they conduct tabletop or pen test exercises? All these things you're going to want to get your hands on and review. You're also going to want to conduct threat intelligence research of their particular landscape, including regulations, key players in compliance, and then also take note of threat actors. And are there any specific groups that are targeting these types of clients? How do they get access, their preferred methods of persistence, and how they go about attempting to compromise organizations in that vertical. You're going to want to understand the existing vendor management process to reveal third-party risks and compliance with security policies. And you're going to want to review customer contracts to ensure that customer-imposed security requirements are met, as these can influence the prioritization of security tasks. If clients you're working with have internally developed software or work with developers, then you'll need to understand their software development lifecycle program and see how security is integrated into application development. That's important. Don't skip that. All right, so the next thing you're going to do is conduct stakeholder interviews. Now, there's a ton of sample questions that we give you in the lesson to be able to walk through these interviews, but I want to just cover some high-level concepts to think about as you start to go through these. So remember, before you begin, the better you conduct these interviews, the less you'll need to disrupt these individuals and their work down the road. Interviewing is a soft skill. Approach it with curiosity. Aim to gain a comprehensive understanding from the outset to reduce the need for frequent follow-ups. The clearer they can explain their processes and the better you document them, the better you'll be able to perform your role and minimize interruptions. So see the lesson for a list of sample questions, as I mentioned, and that will help you perform these interviews. That concludes your phase one. Now for phase 2, we call this the understand phase. Now that you've gotten your feet underneath you in the environment, it's time to consolidate your findings into a comprehensive view of the organization's security maturity and posture. And to do that, you're going to do a couple of different assessments. So the first is conducting a risk assessment. The purpose of the risk assessment is to identify, evaluate, and prioritize risks to an organization's information assets. It focuses on understanding the potential threats and vulnerabilities that could exploit those threats, and then the impact that they would have on the organization. The second thing is a gap analysis. The purpose of the gap analysis is to measure the organization's security practices against industry or framework benchmarks, such as established cybersecurity frameworks like NIST. It focuses on identifying the gaps between the current security controls and the desired or required security controls. And then third is a compliance assessment, very similar to a gap assessment, but the purpose of a compliance assessment is to evaluate an organization's adherence to relevant laws, regulations, and standards specific to the compliance framework. This process involves assessing current security controls and practices to ensure they meet mandatory requirements, such as those outlined by HIPAA for healthcare or GDPR for data protection in the EU. A compliance assessment aims to identify areas of non-compliance and develop strategies to achieve full compliance, thereby reducing legal risks and protecting sensitive information. That brings us to phase 3, prioritize and communicate. The third phase involves using the foundational understanding of the organization's security landscape to develop actionable plans and effectively communicate the current security posture and gaps to management. So you're going to find 30, 60, and 90-day goals. Following that, you're going to create specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, SMART objectives for the next 100 days, the end of the year, and even the following year, prioritizing the mitigation of the most significant risks first. Keep in mind that in the first 100 days, you won't be able to make substantial changes as you'll still be learning the business and identifying security vulnerabilities. But you want to have that plan and then start working on that with management. That said, you want to identify 2 to 3 quick wins you can get in the first 100 days that will enhance the security posture with minimal effort or investment. Enabling MFA, optimizing existing security tool configurations for better coverage, or updating 365 settings to filter out more phishing emails. Just some examples. These actions demonstrate immediate value and build momentum for ongoing improvements. If you can get those quick wins and show improvement, you're going to get buy-in from the leadership. As part of this, you're going to create a strategic remediation plan or roadmap based on those goals, outlining the steps necessary to achieve each objective. This will be a longer-term roadmap that we mentioned that you'll work with leadership to finalize. But again, you're going to present your recommendations and then have them work with you to build consensus on the final roadmap, meaning that they're bought in and they're going to actually be working with you because they've now communicated that this is what they want to do. So that leads us to communicating to management. The goal here is to communicate where the organization stands versus where it needs to be, with the least amount of nerd speak possible. This should be done in the context of the organizational risk, the regulatory requirements, and the business goals. So the first thing here is going to be your goals and remediation plan. You're going to present recommendations for short and long-term plans and how much they'll cost, if you know. As an MSP or an MSSP that can provide these remediation plans, you definitely want to have quotes ready and give them the easy button to be able to action those, right? This is how we create that virtuous sales funnel. This should be based on a deep understanding of how security investments translate into business value, considering factors like reduced downtime, compliance fines avoided, and reputational benefits. Work with management to plan the budgets and allocate resources for security initiatives, ensuring that they're cost-effective and align with the broader financial goals. Again, this is going to be a dance that you're going to have to do with the business to try and get them the best ROI for their security spend. And that's a great value prop for vCISO services, by the way. You're going to identify opportunities where automation can reduce resource demands and streamline current operations, leading to cost savings and improved efficiency.